Hi, my name's Mark Lifland, and I teach at South Brunswick High School. I'm the tech educator, and I wanted to share with you a couple of things that are happening at the high school, and also share with you how you can use VR in the classroom. So I wrote a grant for the South Brunswick Education Foundation. It was awarded a grant for $1,000, and that allowed me to purchase a class set of Google Cardboard, and here's an example of what they will look like when they come in. The phone will fit inside here, and then you strap this on over your head like this. I probably look pretty silly right now, but essentially that's the way that it works. And this is not the expensive item really, but to get a class set of 30 was going to cost them a fair amount of money. And the other thing I wanted to get was some phones for students whose phones don't work that day, or they're not charged, or they have a crack in the screen, or for whatever reason their phone is not compatible with the VR. So we do have a couple of phones, not that many, but I think I was able to get 2 or 3. So that is something that you might want to talk to students before you engage with VR, that most of them will need to have a set of phones, or you could decide to rotate. Currently, I have purchased for my own money a number of sets, and then I also have some sets that were given to me. One when I went to the Google Leadership Academy, so I have 4 of those. They're a little bit different. They kind of look like this, and you can use these as well. And they kind of open up like this. And you put your phone in here and close it up, and then you put it over your face. These are really simple items. I even have one that I've been able to purchase for $5 or $6, and some that I've even seen at places like TJ Maxx and Marshalls and Ross Dress for Less that have sold them for from $11, that are a little bit nicer, that are more along the lines of these. They're not that expensive to purchase. And what they do is they take the power of your phone, the gyroscope and the accelerometer, and map your phone where it is in space, and then basically create a stereoscopic image. And this is old technology. I mean, it goes back, I think, even to the 1880s. Maybe it goes back even further. As far as I know, this is something that's been around for a long time. What makes this different today is that we can do video with it as well. So let me walk you through what we're going to cover today, and then the second half of this, when it was done as a workshop at the high school on the PD Day on February 17th, this coming Friday, you'll be able to actually work with the apps itself. So ideas, the first half will be this, and the second half will be working with the actual headsets, or we'll switch and go the other way around, and your first half will be just working with the headsets, and then you'll watch this video. Because I currently only have 18, and if I have more than 18 people come in right now, I won't be able to do both at the same time. So this kind of solves that problem. Okay, so today in this presentation, I wanted to go over a couple of things related to VR, like what is VR, what actually is it, why use VR in the classroom, and then I need to define some important terms that I think you'll need to know. And then I have some ways in which I think VR can be done, and the 3 basic ways. One is through Google Expeditions, which is an app that was created specifically for the headset that I was looking at, but also you can do VR apps, like actual individual apps that are created by all different kinds of companies that are out there, and students would have to download those apps. And then finally with videos that you can find on YouTube that are already ready for you to view. This presentation was freely adapted from Jack Bosley, and there's his email there, and also from Field Trip VR, from a really great workshop that I went to online called Education on Air, which is done by Google, and they did all kinds of different workshops, not just VR. And those were 2 that were done through Google On Air, and I kind of took some of their slides and I've added some things and kind of combined and really adapted it, as I say here. Okay. So the first question is, what is virtual reality?
Virtual reality is a fully immersive computer-simulated environment that gives a user the feeling of being in that environment instead of the one they're actually in. A lot of video games have already developed the technology to put the user in an interactive world, in the driver's seat of a car, or on the battlefield in a first-person shooter, or even in your own little town. However, your perception of reality is not altered. You are simply a spectator overseeing the events that are happening in that world. In order for your brain to perceive a virtual environment, there are a few key factors that are vital for the creation of an immersive experience necessary for virtual reality. While there are different display methods, one of the most popular ways to experience virtual reality is through a headset. Headset devices use stereoscopic display to make what you see three-dimensional, and to give depth to the image that you're looking at, kind of like how our eyes see anyways. However, stereoscopic display does not an immersive experience make. The ability to track a user's motion, particularly their head and eye movements, allows the image displayed in the headset to actually change with your perspective. So if you turn your head to the left, the display will render whatever is on your left in that environment. Besides vision, certain VR experiences will also include other sensory stimulation like sound and even tactile feedback for touch. Lastly, in order to truly alter the perception of our reality, there has to be a certain level of virtual interactivity. True interactivity should allow a certain degree of user-controlled navigation, so I should be able to walk forward, backward, or turn through space in the virtual environment so that I don't feel like I'm just watching an elaborate 3D movie. When we are able to freely move within that environment, and even interact with things in it, our brains can truly perceive that world as real, and thus, virtual reality. Virtual reality has a lot of practical purposes outside of gaming, and has been used for training simulators for soldiers, pilots, and doctors. But it is pretty cool for gaming too. Virtual reality has seen somewhat of a resurrection lately thanks to exceedingly improved technology and hardware. Devices like the Oculus Rift have advanced the VR experience by including superior graphics, improved latency, and wider range of motion. Reduced cost of components are also allowing virtual reality devices to become more affordable for consumers. For more information on virtual reality, check out Mashable's latest coverage, and don't forget to watch the other videos in our Mashable.
So the idea behind virtual reality is that it gets at another way to teach something. It is kinesthetic, it is visual, it's an immersive experience, and there are some articles that seem to suggest that it does increase student engagement, and it helps us understand some complex ideas that are difficult to understand were it not for the fact that you could actually see it in a model form, like you would with VR. And this kind of really gets at, this particular video really gets at that element, that if it weren't for being able to track something in 3D, it would be very difficult to solve some complex problems. It makes some complex problems seem a little bit more simple. So when you think about ways in which you'd like to use VR, that might be something that you might want to think about. Are there some models out there that are difficult for you to explain, but maybe in virtual reality it makes it a little bit easier for them to understand that concept? And here is a video about how Google Cardboard, the simple version of this, they're calling it cardboard because it's not that expensive. Sometimes they're made out of plastic and sometimes they're made out of cardboard. Most of them are made out of cardboard, but more and more have been made out of plastic as companies have come in and seen the market that's available to make these kinds of headsets. So cardboard is just really sort of a metaphor for the idea of it being inexpensive when you pair it with your phone. If you want to get something that's really expensive, there's the VR headset they were using in that video, which is made by Oculus, which is now owned by Facebook. And there's also other ones out there like PlayStation VR and the HTC Vive. There's a whole bunch of them, and they're very expensive. They're like just under $1,000, some of them. So these are far less when you pair it with your phone.
I see the baby's heart. I see it in 3D. I can see it from the front, the back. I can see it from the top, and I can see it from the bottom. Each one of these is a 2D image, but when I close it and I look through the lenses, then I get 3D, and I can move it just by turning my head. And you know, for a surgeon, that's everything. He knows exactly what he's going to get when he opens up that baby's chest.
That is so cool. You move and it moves the heart. It's almost like you're in her heart.
It's revolutionary because the way that we would plan surgery in the past is we took a two-dimensional image, and then in our mind we would have to process that and try to come up with an idea of what we were going to see when the baby's chest was open.
So your team sat in a room and all of you guys were doing this?
A bunch of us, yeah. Minutes and millimeters make the difference between getting it right and getting it wrong. Once we saw these images, we said, wait a second, we can figure this out. I think this is the difference between her living and dying.
Up here is the link to that article that CNN put out for that particular video. So if you want to read more, you can. I have a whole bunch of articles that I think that might be useful for you, just if you're thinking about VR in general. So from Atlantic Monthly, there's an article taking a look at, does it really help in education? There are 2 articles from Shake Up Learning, which are a good source of, it's actually written by a teacher who blogs on all things tech and really talks a little bit about how to use it in the classroom. And then a couple of other articles near the bottom, the last 3, I say, would be more along the lines of research that has been done in the area of VR and its effectiveness. So interesting reads there if you're interested. We're going to go over some terms right now just to give everyone a common understanding of what I mean. Google Expeditions, Google Cardboard, and virtual reality apps. So the Expeditions is an app that we'll talk about later on in this presentation. But essentially what this app does is it allows for a teacher to take students on virtual field trips, and these field trips have all over the place, and you'll see a spreadsheet that will actually go through and detail all the different places that you can go on these field trips. Like, for instance, you can go to a university, or you can actually go inside all of the different systems within the body, the circulatory system, the respiratory system, and so on. It also allows for you to go to places all around the world, like you can go to the Amazon, and I can go on and on. What these expeditions are is basically an opportunity for teachers to take students on field trips, but the teacher actually controls what the student sees at any given moment, and then actually can work from there. The second thing here is called Google Cardboard. And Google Cardboard is basically the platform that Google created for doing virtual reality on the cheap. And the Google Cardboard is basically this idea that anyone can take the actual, because they actually have a PDF that you can download and put it onto a piece of cardboard and cut things out and then make the actual lenses as well. And basically, it's just a cheap way to create this headset piece. Virtual reality apps are apps that, in theory, I guess could also include Google Expeditions, because that's really what Expeditions is. It's just another app that can be used. But virtual reality apps are all, there's all different kinds, and we'll talk all about the different ones. And they're not made by Google. They're made by other platform makers who are interested in going into the VR market. One of my favorites is one called Titans for Space, where you can actually sit in the cockpit of a spaceship and you see all of the planet system, the whole planetary system come at you, and they give you some facts and information on that. A lot of other apps out there. So Okay, so in this half, I'm going to walk you through 3 different ways in which you can use VR in your classroom. One is through an app called Google Expeditions. Excuse me, Google Expeditions, and the other 2 are VR apps where just there are other third-party companies besides Google, maybe even in some cases Google, that have created apps that will allow for you to have a VR experience. And then finally YouTube, which has a lot of what they refer to as 360 videos, which you can't move through the video itself, but you can circle around and see things in 360. That's what they call it that. So those are the 3 apps. We'll start off by taking a look at Google Expeditions. I put a link here to a couple of things I thought would be helpful for each one of those apps. The first one is Google Cardboard App List, and what this does is it gives you all the different apps that are compatible with the Google Card virtual reality, and there probably are even more beyond that. I think if you just go into the various Google Play Store or the Apple Play Store, you'll see that these apps are available even if you just type in VR. But they have some that they have identified as working well with the Google Cardboard headsets. And this was put together by Jack Bosley, who was the one who created the core of what this presentation was before I kind of played around with it. And he had people submit, and you can too. I have another link for the actual form right here where you can fill out and add to this. And basically what they did is they gave you all the information you would need to get started using that particular app. They gave you a link for the Google Play and then also for the iTunes. And then if it wasn't applicable, it meant that it wasn't available on iPhones. So you might want to consider only the ones that are available there. The other thing that they have done is he put it in a subject area, and then the exact link or URL if adding, and then any kind of comments that might help you. So you might want to search by various things. You could sort the actual spreadsheet however you want to, and you can get a sense of what would be good for you given your unique situation. So that's available for you to take a look at. The other one is a list of Google Expeditions that are available out there, and last I looked there were over 200 of them. I think it was 234. So there's a lot of different kinds of Google Expeditions you can go on. Like I said, there's the one on Amazon, and this is in alphabetical order, and you can find all the different available expeditions that are out there. So expeditions are just within that one particular app that allows for teachers to take students on different places. Like, for instance, one of the things you can do is you can go to University of Notre Dame, and then they have looks like 9 different scenes that you can go to, and it takes you to different parts on the campus, and students will have the opportunity to look around there. And that's not just university visits, but I just happened to be on U, so a lot of those universities came up. So, for instance, Western Cape, South Africa. It's a little easier, I think, in some ways to find the different expeditions here than it is for you to actually get it through the app. So that's why I think someone created this expeditions spreadsheet. Then virtual reality videos. There's a playlist that you can take a look at, and basically this is their virtual reality tab, meaning that they have kind of grouped all those videos together. You could even watch Donald Trump's inauguration live in 360. That was actually available live at the time, but now is available having been recorded. And there are all kinds of things in here that you might find useful. You'll have to search around and see what you think would be good. Virtual Reality Home will kind of walk you through different categories as well. So it depends on what you're looking for. And then this last link takes you to a website that will determine whether or not the phone that you're using is compatible with Google Cardboard, or actually just with VR generally, not with Google Cardboard. So you find the maker of your phone, and then from there, you can drill down and see which one you have and determine whether or not your phone is compatible. So that's a good tool for you to use. I'm going to show you 2 different videos that will walk you through what Google Expeditions look like, because now we're going to shift and talk about what that is. This one comes from CBS and does a nice job of explaining basically how Google Expeditions was when it first got started.
This is such a cool story. Google is teaming up with hundreds of schools to take students around the world from inside their classrooms. This program is called Expeditions, and it uses virtual reality. It actually can teleport students to far-flung places often seen in their textbooks. Vanita Nair is at a New York City school using this technology. Vanita, good morning.
Good morning. We're at Lab Middle School in Lower Manhattan, where the kids are doing in just a few moments. This is about one of 100 schools across the globe using this new virtual technology. We spoke with Google and they told us they came up with this idea after hearing from teachers who wanted to bring abstract concepts to life.
Hey, there's a scuba diver.
Google's new program is taking kids on field trips where no bus has ever gone.
Oh, I see pufferfish.
This 6th grade science class plunged deep into Australia's Coral Sea, getting 360-degree views of the Great Barrier Reef.
I see the scuba diver.
The classroom scuba divers crisscross the planet to Ecuador's Galapagos Islands, getting an up-close look at sea lions far below the surface of the ocean.
It's actually pretty big. I mean, it's not too small. It's like a robin fish. I don't see it.
The students pause to take notes before losing themselves in the imagery again.
Okay, write down your observations at this point.
Their teacher, Allison Davis, guided the tour from her tablet, stopping periodically to discuss what they were seeing.
What tells us that the coral is thriving? Dia?
Well, they're really colorful. They're not like in the video we watched for homework. They're not like bleached or anything.
They point things out that I wouldn't even think to be looking at.
Davis says it's a learning experience for both the student and the teacher, and believes her students are gaining a better understanding of her lessons.
They're making connections to things that they're hearing on the news and going on in the world.
Those 360-degree views are created by stitching together photographs from Google Street View. 16 GoPro cameras are also used to make the trip feel lifelike.
You put on the glasses. What is it like?
Well, I think it's really cool because it feels like you're there.
The panoramas themselves don't change. It's how the teacher applies it.
Google Program Director Jennifer Holland, a former educator herself, says teachers can tailor the voyages to their curriculum.
We had a math teacher that actually created an expedition on the Great Wall of China. And that same expedition was used by a 10th grade Chinese language teacher to teach vocab.
The kit includes a smartphone, cardboard viewers, a tablet for the teacher, and a router that allows expeditions to run offline if necessary. Google says they'll provide the kits free of cost for the first year, but will eventually charge schools.
Can you give us an idea of a price point? Would it be the cost of a phone? Would it be the cost of a group of phones?
I get that question all the time. So, to be honest, right now within the Expeditions Pioneer program, we're just trying to understand how the existing technology can work. We want to make it as accessible as possible.
See the clouds.
There's a question around cost and really thinking about the maintenance of the technology long term.
New York Lab's middle school principal, Megan Adams, says for cash-strapped schools, investing in the program may be hard, but she says it's an important learning tool.
Some kids might see this technology and still prefer a textbook, but some kids will see this technology who don't normally engage in reading or discussion and all of a sudden understand the concept.
Now, it's not just virtual voyages. Google tells us in the near future they would love to expand into career options. What does that mean? Well, it means in the near future you could shadow a professional like a physician or a lawyer, or Gail, maybe even a news anchor.
I like it. I think the whole thing is genius. And so smart of Google to say, listen, we'll let you have it for a year and then charge. Yep. Because once you look into it, you want it.
You're sold.
Whether you're 3 to 93, you're thinking, I want one of these.
It's a form of...
Okay, so the other video is one that I created using something called Adobe Spark. And if you want to learn more about that, you can. I can work with you one-on-one, and we might even develop some workshops on that. But the next piece is actually from Crystal Burnett's classroom, and I used the VR headsets in her classroom just as an early test of how the whole system would work. So the beauty of that is that I was really able to use it and kind of incorporate it into her class, which was doing a lesson on the respiratory system. And at that time, I did not have enough for the whole class. So what we did is we actually split up the class. So behind that wall that you see there were students that were working on something else, while she took half of her class and had them do virtual reality. It was good for 15 minutes of them working with the actual app, and the kids actually really loved it. I got a very nice email from Ms. Burnett, and it went really well. I thought that it was as well as it could be expected, especially since it was the first time that I had students using it in a real classroom setting, and I think I'm real excited about it. You can see that there are a lot of students have different headsets, so those are the ones that I currently have available. The ones that will actually eventually be getting through this grant are these right here. In the next, I'm going to show you how to walk your class through, how you can get your class onto Google Expeditions. I'll do that in the next video. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is kind of walk you through the steps that you would need to take in order to have your students go on a virtual field trip using Google Expeditions. Excuse me. First thing you're going to do is the teacher is going to download the Google Expeditions onto their device. The second step is for the teacher to open up that app, and there's two options on the app at the very top. One that says to be a leader, and the one that says, a guide, or to be a follower. So 5 steps. So students then are going to download their version of the Expeditions app onto their devices. And then students are going to place their device inside the headset and put them on. And the teacher leads the student through the Expeditions by reading through the descriptions and asking them questions. So what happens is when you push that thing up, this element right here, underneath it there is a description of what the students are looking at, and that you can read that out loud to students, and then there's questions that appear. And then within each individual scene, you have the ability to push their eyes, and they see an arrow in their headsets that pushes and tells them to look at a particular object within that scene. And then when you're done with that scene, you can flip and go to the next scene. And then there's a similar kind of setup. Okay, so from the student view, they're going to have the two options where it says lead and follow. You could be a guide or you could be an explorer. So you hit on lead, and they hit on follow, and they'll see that you'll see that there's a number of students that have appeared within your particular classroom. So the student view, when they hit follow, they'll see that there is the person, the teacher, who in this case was named Amy DeMarco, and she has 0 explorers. As you get more people, you'll have more explorers. From the teacher view, you'll look through the app and you'll click on that heart, and then eventually they'll be able to follow you. You'll have to download the individual expedition before you start the expedition. All right, so the student view is that it will look like this, and the teacher, when they're actually within the app, the student view will look like this, and the teacher view will look like that. One thing I would very much suggest is that you have to have both the teacher and the student on the same network. So the way to accomplish that is for everyone to be on the BYOD network. If they're using their own personal network, this expedition will not work, because what happens is the two need to be on the same exact BYOD so the teacher can control what the students see within their headset, which is this image right here. It says ready, and then when the teacher hits play, that play button right there, everything starts. And then the student view looks like this. They see a stereoscopic vision, but it will look 3D, and they'll be able to look all around in 360 degrees. And the teacher will see this. What they're seeing behind the set of questions on their phone is what, like a part of what the students will actually see. And you can actually move with your finger. You can see the 360 view that they would see in their headsets at the same time that you could look at their questions. If you push this element up, which was down there at the bottom, then you could read the actual statement, and then there are a series of questions. And then below those series of questions, there are different elements within the scene. And those are kind of like the crosshairs right there. And then they get an arrow on their view, and then when they get to the right spot where they're supposed to be, that's what they look at, and they can see, oh, I'm looking at the ascending aorta, as an example. Those smiling faces show you that there are a number, like that represents one student that's looking at the thing that you want them to look at. And then you could toggle between, as a student, you could toggle between the VR mode and the regular mode. So let's say you've got not enough headsets for every single kid, or there's a kid who doesn't like putting the headsets on for whatever reason. It could be that they get a little bit dizzy from it, or just feel disoriented, or for whatever reason. The student can toggle between the VR mode, which would like really is that. So when they're in this non-VR mode, they click on this, they'll go to that, and when they click on this, they go to that. So this is like full screen, and that's the VR mode. So when you're in VR mode, they show you how to get back to full screen, and when they're in full screen mode, they show you how to get back to the VR mode. This is a video that kind of shows it, what I just described. Okay, so there are some apps that you can use that allow for you to actually go on these kinds of expeditions, but actually they're not expeditions, they're just other apps. So one of those apps is that Let's Go to Egypt app, and there's a way within the app, for example, that you can click on the VR mode in the corner, in the top right hand corner right there, and then the download the content will download. This is available on Google Play Store, and it gives you a sense of you have the ability to kind of walk around within Egypt. One thing I really just suggest is that generally go into the Google Play Store, go into the iTunes Store, and type in cardboard, or even just type in VR, and see what you get. Maybe there are some apps that relate to what you're interested in looking at. By the way, you could see there in the previous one that there was the Titans of Space app, which I really think is amazing. I mean, if you were thinking about doing something with astronomy, I don't know why you wouldn't do that. That's such a cool app. A lot of apps out there that are available that will actually be able to allow you to do VR. You might want to just check to make sure that it's available in both Play Stores. So both in the iTunes Play Store and also in the Google Play Store. because I don't think there's too many students that are on another operating system than those two. Okay, so I hope you guys had a good time in exploring the VR. If you have already taken a look at VR in the first session, I hope that you guys had a good experience, and if you have not, stay tuned, you're going to have a really good time. One thing I'm going to do is I'll put in the description of this particular YouTube video the link to this presentation, because there are so many links contained within the presentation that you might find that you want to go back to and take a look at. Thank you very much.